AI and big data are revolutionizing how businesses run their IT operations, turning what was once a maze of manual processes into a seamless data driven environment. Whether it's optimizing performance, automating workflows, or improving security, these platforms are becoming the unsung heroes of modern IT. And if you ever wondered how AI can keep up with all the chaos in SaaS, well, let's just say AI never needs a coffee break, but your IT team sure might appreciate one. So, without further ado, let's welcome our speaker to walk us through how these cutting edge platforms are transforming the landscape of IT operations. We have someone with an extensive career spanning over 24 years and who have been with Thoughtworks for the past 3 years. Please welcome Gopal Krishnan Upadhyay, a seasoned expert in product management and leadership. Throughout his career, he has played pivotal roles, progressing from product manager to taking on key product leadership positions, primarily in the BFSI sector. He holds a PG diploma in management from IIM Calcutta and has led some groundbreaking initiatives, including the launch of India's first fully online investment process and scaling multiple successful products. In recent years, his expertise in AI and big data has been instrumental in projects like transforming a major credit bureau, developing a data operating model for a South African bank, and building a data platform for a SaaS management system. With his strong focus on product management and a track record of driving innovation, Gopal Krishnan continues to lead impactful transformation in the AI and data space. Let's give a very warm welcome to Gopal Krishnan to talk about building an AI and big data platform to help organizations manage their SaaS based IT operations. Over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thanks for the introduction. Uh, Today, I'm going to talk about some problem I came across recently, and that really excited me in terms of the possibilities that actually the problem provides and the scale of impact that it could offer. Okay. Uh, as introduced, like I have 24 years of work experience, mostly as product manager, mostly on BFSI. So I've spent some time, with classifieds like Magic Bricks and other organizations as well. Uh, so I think a lot of people like talking about the good old days, especially people of my age. So I'll just start talking with the good old days. By good old days, what I mean is uh, the days where SaaS wasn't prevalent. I don't know when you guys started your career, but I started it in the 2000s, and then at that time, the process of managing IT was much simpler, is what I would say, from a organization perspective or not from an employee perspective. I used to work for Infosys. There, to get maybe, for example, a PDF writer installed, I had to raise a request. It will get approved. Then somebody will come to my desk. They will install it because typically we do not have admin access on the desktops. They will install it, and then it will be for a 6-month period, after which the license would expire, right? And all these licenses are managed within the network of the organization, so nothing was outside. So the organization had very good control over who was using what and what data is going outside or coming inside the network, right? So at that point of time, as an employee, I found it very difficult because it was extremely cumbersome to get the approvals and get the installation done. But from an organization perspective, it was much easier. But look at today, I think the equation has flipped. Now it is much easier for the employees to start using some application, right? I can just go sign up and then start using an application. But from an organization perspective, they have zero visibility on who is using, and then what data is going out, what data is coming in, what threats are there, are the accounts configured appropriately and things like that. So there is zero visibility on that. Okay, just to talk about the extent of the problem, just think about how many SaaS applications you think a typical organization uses, right? Let's take a organization which is less than 500 people. How many apps do you think would be used, right? My guess initially was maybe 30 to 40 if it's a small organization. And if it's a larger organization, maybe a 80 to 100 number. But when I actually looked at the numbers, it was quite staggering. Okay. So what you see on the figure is the overall average. So 371 applications are being used on an average. This is actually from a study published by an organization called Productive, which actually is a player in the SaaS management space. So 371, which is up by 32% from 2 years earlier, which is 2021, right? To me, the most staggering number was this, that 253 for an organization which is less than 500 employees, right? If you think of a typical organization with less than 500 employees, they would have what, 3, 4 people for IT support. And just think of it, right? The scale of the problem they're having, right? They have to manage so many applications. They have to be on top of it because if I store some sensitive data, there's a data breach, my organization reputation is damaged and things like that, right? Bigger organizations, yeah, you see that 473, but of course they will have a big IT team, but still, they have a problem that needs solving, right? And if you look at a lot of these platforms, the testimonials will typically talk about the numbers I was talking about, saying that I thought we were using 100, but we identified 150 more or 200 more, things like that. So I think the basic problem is people did not even know how many applications were getting used. But the other problem was to understand how they are being used, right? Then, based on the numbers from, again, this is from a competitor of uh, Productive, Xylo, which is again among the leaders in the space. What has been revealed is 18 million on an average is wasted in licenses. Of course, this 18 million is actually skewed by this 10,000 plus employees. But if you look at a small organization also, it is a $1.9 million that is going wasted. If you look at $1.9 million, it is probably 30, 40 employees pay, right? So that much is getting wasted. And more importantly, 51% of the licenses procured are unused. So just somebody goes and procures, there is a disconnect between who uses it, and then they just stay there. And every year at the time of renewal, because there's so many apps to maintain, I don't bother checking whether somebody is using it or not. I just go and actually renew the license, right? So 50%, 51% licenses are getting wasted. So basically, what is happening is, yeah, people are signing up left, right, center for applications. They're buying licenses either through the IT, or in a lot of organizations, they're just buying and getting it reimbursed based on their organization policies. And there's no central visibility on what is happening with those applications, right? See, imagine if you don't know how many applications are being used and how are they being used, how will you know like what is the security threats that are coming because of that, right? Is somebody actually sharing this data outside? Is like, is Gopal downloading the employee list and actually uploading it into some SaaS application? No one knows, right? So that's where the SaaS sprawl has caused a significant problem for the organizations. uh, I touched upon each of these issues earlier briefly. One is lack of governance. So basically, I don't know who is procuring apps, who's using what applications, or when I should discontinue some using applications, or how many safe applications are being used also, because a lot of these applications may not be, meeting the compliance standards, right? So that is first thing, the lack of governance, absolute lack of visibility on who's using what. Second is administrative complexity. By this, just imagine, for a moment that if all these get centralized, of the 253 apps we spoke about for a 500 people organization, even if 100 is getting centralized, how will 3, 4 people team maintain access, revoke access when somebody is offboarding, keep a list of who have access and things like that, right? So that administrative complexity is significant because they have to log into each of those 100 applications, even if they are managing 100 applications. So that's the one. Third part is license wastage. Uh, I think I shared some numbers earlier, and this license wastage has two aspects as well. Uh, One is unused licenses, by which I mean that an organization procures 100 licenses, of which it is allocated only 80 licenses. So 20 are unallocated. That is one part of it. Then there is a concept of underused licenses, right? Gopal as a user has has a license allocated. He has logged in once, but for the last 3 months, he has not used it at all, right? Which means, again, I don't have a need for it, right? I may not have a need for it. That needs to be confirmed. So those are underused licenses. And then the fourth one is increased security risks, right? Security as well as compliance risk. I should have mentioned that there, especially things like GDPR, right? When there are very strict regulations about how data can be shared, how privacy has to be handled. We need to have very clear visibility on how data is being used, where it is being used, who has what data, and they also need to understand the compliance standards of the third party that they are sharing the data with, right? So that, again, without that visibility, like, if there is a data breach happening, so for example, if there's a data breach that is reported for chat gpt, is my organization impacted or not? I will not know unless I have a complete visibility on who is using it, right? So this is where a SaaS management platform comes into play. As I've said, it allows organization to manage and operate their SaaS applications. They provide two-way integrations. I'll talk about it with SaaS applications to enable administration, license optimization, and security posture management of the portfolio. I've called out some key players in this space. SMP delivers four key capabilities, which actually maps to the problem statements I was referring earlier. One is application discovery. It gives you a view of what applications are getting used within an organization. The complete list, right? It's not just saying, okay, this is what the IT team knows, but this is much beyond that, right? Complete view of all the applications being used. Second is application management. In fact, almost all of those vendors provide the ability for setting up onboarding policies, offboarding policies, etc. What do I mean by that? Let's say Thoughtworks has a policy that somebody who's coming in as a product manager needs access to 15 apps. And then somebody coming in as a developer needs access to 25 apps, right? So that can be configured within within a Zluri or a Zyro, a SaaS management platform, and then say that, okay, these are the apps that a product manager needs to access. So when Gopal is joining Thoughtworks, there is an integration with the HRMS system that is possible, the HR management system, and then he's tagged as a product manager. Automatically, the onboarding happens, right? IT operations guy does not have to go into multiple applications to actually enable the access. So he just has to go to one place and then set it up, and automatically the provisioning of the license happens. Similarly, when Gopal moves out, all those licenses have to be harvested back. So again, the same thing, you set up a rule and then, the same thing happens, right? That is where I meant the two-way integration, right? Not just one way, not just data pull. It is also, data write and a lot of other flows also come in there. Cost and license management. I think cost, license management, we briefly spoke about. The cost management aspect also comes in. Uh, the corollary to not knowing how many apps are getting used is basically not knowing how much is getting spent on apps, right? If I don't know what are being used, I'll not know how much is spent on that. So these platforms integrate with various expense systems like an Intuit, and pull information from there, and then using artificial intelligence or with some human intelligence as well, map it to a SaaS expenditure. Because if I actually pull data from my expense system, it may have hundreds of entries, of which maybe 3 or 4 relate to a SaaS expense, right? So that level of intelligence needs to be built in, and then that needs to feed in saying, hey, this is what you are spending, and then maybe some benchmarks and things like that. I have some examples which I share as we go along. Okay, and then the license management. And license management, there is actually one more level to it, which I did not touch upon earlier. In the underused management, right? It is not just about not frequently using it. It is about not using the capabilities fully, right? A lot of vendors, they talk about a capability where, for example, Zoom, right? Zoom has different tiers of licensing. A Zoom uh, basic is where I can just attend meetings. Zoom Pro is where I can actually host meetings, and then Zoom Webinar is where I can actually host webinars with that. So we can pull information from Zoom at the granular level and see if Gopal is actually hosting meetings, hosting webinars, or just attending meetings. So the feedback could be saying that, okay, Gopal has been allocated a pro, but he does not require it. So that downgrade, you can save some money. So that level of granular information also is fed in and it is processed. Security and compliance, it provides a lot of visibility into what applications are getting used and what are the security levels for each of the applications, right? Is an application a low risk application or a high risk application? So there are a lot of vendors who provide this information, saying this is a high risk application and this is a which one's a high risk, which one's a low risk, and also they provide the compliance standards that are followed, right? So that way they actually fetch a lot of these informations and provide a very good visibility in terms of what is the security level, what is the compliance, and also provide recommendations in terms of how do you increase your security level and compliance. The other angle of helping with compliance is it is able to automate a lot of your compliance report, audit reports like a SOC 2 report. For example, because it's able to pull information from various access information from various applications and then collate it for the report. So SMPs are essentially big data and AI platforms. I think Ratna before me covered these briefly, uh, what big data and AI platforms are. I'll not spend time on this, but again, I'll reiterate the point he was making. It is about the volume of data, variety of data, and the velocity of processing. So if you look at how a SMP achieves whatever I spoke about earlier, uh, it is actually able to consume huge volumes of data. It supports a huge variety of data. I'll talk about it. And then it has to process all those, uh, sometimes in batch, sometimes in real time, to actually provide insights. So in this diagram, what I've tried to cover is to give you a flavor of the variety of data that could get into this application. So some of the vendors talk about integrations with 800 different applications, but some of the application directories of SaaS apps have thousands of applications, right? So imagine if I have to support that range, I have to integrate with thousands of applications. And then these are varied applications, right? One is the application logs, which I was like, fetching information from a GWS or a Zoom or a Mural. Each of these have their own different formats. Some of these have a format wherein I can pull data for all employees in one go, but some of it has the complexity that I'll have to send individual requests for each of the data, right? Which means that if it's a organization with 10,000 employees, I have to make 10,000 calls to be able to fetch all the data for any useful insight. So that level of variety is there within application logs itself. Then we have IDPs, identity data providers, which give a view of exactly who is logged in using what and things like that. So that comes in. HR management system, I can pull the employee ledger, understand the role a person is playing, so that I can see if there are any misconfigurations. Expense systems I spoke about. Doc repositories like a G drive or a box to understand which files are getting exposed outside, which files have confidential information, uh, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, from a data loss prevention perspective. Network logs, again, just to understand what all applications are getting accessed. Contracts is an interesting use case. I'll talk about it. Basically, it is like saving the manual effort of going through the contract and making it a structured information. Surveys, organizations could conduct surveys on if they are using multiple applications of the same category. They could conduct surveys to understand which ones are more popular, so that they can consolidate. App directories I spoke about, and then browser extension and MDM logs are uh, software that is sitting in a consumer application and providing data in terms of what is getting accessed, what are the activities happening, and all those things. So if you look at it, the variety of data is huge. And then from a volume perspective also, right? If you think of it, application log for a 10,000 employee organization, if you think of it, it's going to be huge. And then we are not talking about a single application, we are talking about thousands of applications potentially, right? If we looked at that number of 470 plus for a 10,000 plus organization. So many logs coming in, and then there are a lot of other information also that comes in. So the volume and variety is huge. And then this is where the entire processing happens. We get the data in multiple formats, normalize it, and then roll it up to get useful insights. And of course, we'll have to run AI ML models over it uh, to actually develop models, maybe a risk scoring model or something like that, and then provide that insight in multiple formats, right? Uh, if you look at the standard, offering of most of the vendors, you have the front end screen, you have a Slack integration, basically saying, hey, this is something you need to act on. You have other SaaS integration saying that, okay, there is some issue with this account, either block this account or change the password or something like that. There are chatbots that coming in, and there are reporting tools that come in as well, right? So basically, essentially, if you look at it, it has it's basically a big data and AI platform which pulls information from a variety of resources, processes the huge volume with good velocity to deliver insights. Okay, so quickly rushing through. These are the essentials of a SaaS management platform. Basically, trying to summarize what was said earlier. You need an integration with a wide variety of sources, and these are two-way integration. Then you need the ability to ingest huge volume of data. You need the ability to process that data in real time as well as in batch, because a lot of this could actually work on batch, but there are real-time use cases as well. And then automation and optimization driven by the insights, right? Especially this automation part is becoming increasingly critical as we move along, as organizations focus on reducing costs, human costs, labor costs. Automation is getting a lot more focus now. Okay, I've spoken about the problem, I've talked about how it is getting solved. I'll quickly talk about some examples, because this is about exploring the possibilities. I wanted to give you some ideas of the possibilities, right? Uh, I have some 7, 8 we'll take up based on the time that we have. The first one is the simplifying administration part of it. So if you look at this example, right, the screenshot you see, it is for a employee offboarding flow, right? What happens when an employee offboards, right? Typical issues are that we need to actually harvest all the licenses back from him. He might be owning a lot of groups which we not be aware of. So if he moves out of the organization, those will get orphaned. There'll be a lot of documents he will have, which again would get orphaned, and then it'll just keep taking space and things like that, right? So the screen, what this does is it tries to capture all the impact of offboarding of a particular employee. So if somebody comes and says, hey, Gopal is offboarding, let me know what the impact is. So this says, you need to transfer ownership of critical resources, right? Something like I own a domain or a social media handle. So that ownership needs to be changed. So I can do that from the screen. Whatever other things, right? Other high security apps I have access to. Uh, I might actually be an admin for an app. I might be the only admin. So that again, that needs to be transferred to someone. So in one screen, we are able to capture all the information based on what we have gathered, and then provide a view on what are the things that need to be done for this guy to be onboarded, offboarded, and that can be completely automated, right? I can say, okay, I can review this and say, okay, I've made whatever I need to do. Let's go ahead and offboard him automatically. Okay, so this is one part where it is actually simplifying the administration part of it, right? Then it can actually deliver usage insights. I spoke about chatbot as a mode of insight sharing. So if you look at what is here, basically somebody is looking at the usage and raising a question saying, why is this app getting used so much, right? So then I'm getting a response saying, hey, we have so many new users in this month, of which whatever 70 are from engineering department and 6 are from product department. So it even gives a product level breakup. So if you look at it, it has tracked the usage to find out who all have signed in, and subsequently looked at the employee ledger to see which department they belong to, and then come up with this insight. And then the other one is on better governance. This is something a lot of people miss, is the configuration part of it, right? Typically, when somebody signs up for an application, the general tendency is to make everyone an admin so that they are empowered and you don't have to go back to them, go back to someone for access and things like that. But obviously, that is a security risk. So if you look at this example, right, it identifies that there is a configuration that is not correct. Based on the benchmark it has established, this 33.33 is, you can look at it as a benchmark they have established, and then say that, hey, what you have done has actually breached this thing, so you are carrying a risk, go ahead and address it. Okay. Then other one, we spoke about licensing costs. I'll just give you a view of the kind of insights people share here. So one is, for each person, it gets into details of what is the activity done, right? How has Gopal's usage varied over a period of time? So it could be daily, weekly, whatever it is. So it gives you that trend line, and also it gives you information on how many licenses are unused, what is the estimated savings you could have, and all. We spoke about that earlier as well. Then generating pricing insights, right? If you think of it, uh, SMP could have ten thousands of organization as their client. So they have a very broad view of how an application prices, right? Based on that, they can actually come up with benchmarks saying for an organization of this size, I think this is the right price, or this is not the right price. This is the average price I'm seeing in my organization. So again, you'll have a ML model doing some cluster analysis and then coming up with which ones are similar applications. Based on that, it will come up with a average, right? So again, it is has views across organizations, and it is providing that information for an organization so that they can make intelligent decisions. Similarly, app recommendations also, they have visibility across organizations, and they can come up with recommendations saying, hey, this app seems more popular. So why don't you switch to it? You're using multiple apps, you need to consolidate. So maybe this is what you should do. And then AI-based contract ingestion. This I touched upon briefly earlier. So typically contracts are unstructured information where somebody has to read through and then figure out what is the cost, what is the period, and things like that. So this AI-based ingestion actually helps actually get that information, get information. It could even get to the level of getting information for tiered pricing, and then understanding that and applying that overall, right? So identifying the information is just the first step of it. Building some intelligence on top of it and coming up with recommendations, and also newer clauses at the time of renewal would add a lot more value, right? Then the other part, we spoke a lot about security. So this is how this SMP enable better security. Again, what they're doing is they've looked at different aspects of security, right? One is uh, it is around how many apps are getting used and how many of them are risky apps. So it looks at the usage data, consolidates saying, okay, 300 apps are getting used, of which 150 are okay, the other 150 is are risky set of apps. And then it could come up with recommendations saying, you already have a better app in this category being used, why don't you move there, right? That is one part of it. It is also getting to the people side of it. Uh, it is trying to find out who are the people who are actually signing up for new apps, right, on a very regular basis. There could be some people who are always curious to try out new apps. So they may be doing it. So it highlights them so that somebody can have a conversation with them, say, hey, we see that you have this tendency. Please be more discreet when you do it, right? Make sure you look at the various aspects and then do it. Then it also gives me a dashboard on the app breaches that have happened. So if of the 300 apps that I have, there are breaches reported in two of the apps, I still need to be worried. So that needs to get highlighted so that I can take the appropriate action. And this can go on. A lot of organizations are talking about a risk score based on the entire portfolio of an organization, or looking at a user's usage profile, right? Is he accessing from two different, multiple IPs, multiple geographies within a short span of time? Or does he have a tendency to actually access at late in the night and things like that? Based on that, they could come up with a score so that those users can be actually tracked much more closely. Okay. Finally, see, all these things are need to drive revenue for the organization, and the revenue SMB platform drives is primarily cost savings on multiple aspects, right? One we spoke about is the license management aspect, wherein I can optimize the license usage and the cost based on the usage. The other one is saving labor cost, right? As I spoke about earlier, onboarding, one user might take, 2, 3 hours in the earlier scenario. In this case, it might be a matter of minutes, right? Similarly with offboarding. And the other cost saving is cost spent on audits, right? Audits are significant costs for a lot of organizations, and what the testimonials, what I've read is like what used to take months is now getting done in a matter of hours, because this has all the information in one place. Uh, so they're able to do audit easily and deliver the report much faster. Okay. In fact, this number is a number I've taken from one of the vendors. So they're saying that for a 500 employee organization, they'll be able to save 600K in a year. So if you look at the earlier number, right, 2 million in losses. So this number seems realistic if you correlate it. Okay. See, I can keep talking about it. The possibilities are endless, and at this point, this is still a nascent field. So it's very difficult to predict how this is going to evolve over a period of time. But it has a lot of potential, a lot of potential to derive value for various organizations and also for the industry as well, right? For at an industry level, also people want to know what is more popular, what is it that the market wants and things like that. So that again is a possibility that will get addressed, right? So the possibilities are endless, but we need to have proper guardrails required, right? So if you think of it, again, I have the data, I can actually come up with anything. I have the usage data, I can say that, hey, Gopal, based on his usage, I think that he might quit the organization, right? So those kind of things people need to be careful about. From so far, what I have seen, most of the organizations are very good with it. It is all with proper guardrails. In fact, the AI is currently looked at as augmented intelligence. So it just provides the insight for somebody to act on. But I'm sure with a lot of competition in the area, that there'll be one vendor maybe start off doing something and then it might flow. So we need to ensure that proper guardrails are required. We need to consider the privacy aspects, to what level we can go, uh, what is the, like, how comfortable are the SaaS providers with what we are doing. Something like a benchmark, I'm not sure whether a Zoom would be comfortable us telling someone that, hey, you're paying a higher price for the offering, right? So those things would come in as the thing evolves. We need to keep an eye out for that. So that is what I had. Any questions?
We have two questions from the online audience. Any suggestions around top five SaaS based application names which can scale data and AI?
Can you come again?
Top five
Hmm.
SaaS based application names which can scale data and AI.
So I can answer it from two perspectives. The one is, if just looking at a SaaS management platform perspective. Uh, so basically, if you think of it, you have, I think some of the names I've already used in this presentation. If you look at the Gartner quadrant, in fact, Gartner recently has released the first report for SaaS management platform, because they see this getting a lot of traction. So you will see Zluri, you will see organization called Xylo, you will see Better Cloud. I think that's one of the more, you would have heard it in other domains as well. You will see something called Tori, which again is a player in this space. And Productive also seems quite popular. It's near the top there. So that is from a pure SaaS management perspective, those are the things I can think of. And if the question is more in terms of what are the top five apps, SaaS apps, which are more popular, this is the data I've got from the productive research. We have Lucid, Chart, LinkedIn, Salesforce, Atlassian, and DocuSign. So there are multiple lists, but generally, this is the pattern I've seen. Salesforce, Atlassian, they'll be in the top two, three.
Another question is how can we increase the adoption of these applications in the users? What is the future of this integration for SaaS application from your point of view?
Yeah. See, increasing adoption of user, what we are seeing is there is a significant demand from the market because of all the issues we have seen, right? And so far, the focus has been on the SME space, right? They've, I'd spoken to some large organizations, but when I spoke to them, they really did not feel the need for something like that. But I'm sure that will also evolve. So far, the focus is on SME organization, basically, less than 10,000. And there is a significant demand. That is where I think Gartner has also come up with a report because they are seeing a significant amount of inquiries from their customers for this space. And if you look at the number of organizations jumping into the space, again, that is a good indication that there is a lot of adoption already there. Uh, and then, of course, one of the vendors we spoke to was that they're to increase the adoption, they're giving the more of a freemium model, right? They're letting people use it for free for a period of time, and then starting to charge them once they see the value. So that again is another space another possibility I can think of. But yeah, I think currently where we are in the market, there is already a lot of unaddressed demand. Once that happens, then we need to kind of see how we can expand the market. But at this point, there is significant unaddressed demand. If you look at any report, the growth projections are 15 to 20% growth, year-on-year growth over the next 4 or 5 years.
I hope that answers your question, the audience who asked this question. I'll also pause for any question that we have here from anyone.
Yeah. So what is the expectations from the end users who will be using this application? So like, let's say there are a lot of requirements for data, like from different sources, network logs and all this information that you showed the list. So who is expected to benefit from this? I mean, as an organization as a whole, it's fine, but who will be the end users that would actually be benefiting from this?
Yeah. See, typically we have seen multiple personas using this. Okay. One is the IT operations person uh, who is going to set up accounts, who is going to onboard, offboard employees. That use case I spoke about. See, the thing is, they don't have to do the integration. So all those are pre-integrated in the application, right? As an IT person, I'll have to say that, okay, my organization wants to use a mural, right? And I want to leverage the integration. So Mural would be pre-integrated with the platform, and this platform will pull the information on behalf of the organization for making all this thing. So from a user perspective, they just have to maybe do a couple of clicks and that is set up, right? So that is one persona we have seen, IT operations persona. The other persona I've seen is procurement, right? Uh, something is something needs to be bought. There's like multiple, like I know 50 people are joining. I need to buy for them. That is one scenario. So I need to understand what the current usage is. Is everyone using it, or is there a possibility for me to harvest some license and allocate, or at the time of renewals, right? Like typically with an annual payment, I might have paid the fees upfront. So I may not be worried about usage till the renewal comes in. So at the time of thing, I need to again check, do I need to renew for the whole thing, or do I need to renew more, or do I need to change my license mix, right? And in terms of Zoom, what we are talking about was the combination of basic versus pro versus Zoom webinar, right? So do I need to change that mix, right? So that is another persona I've seen. The third persona is the security people, maybe a CTO or a chief security officer or a information security person, trying to understand the risk profile of the applications being used, right? How many of them are risky? What data is shared? How many files are getting shared externally, right? This is something we could pull from a Google Drive or something like that. who's actually more riskier, right? So those kind of things, which apps have been breached. Uh, so, and in fact, people also track the app supply chain, right? There are a lot of organizations that track the app supply chain, which means that it says if Mural I'm using, Mural is using some 3, 4 apps in the background. So if there is an issue with that, I might get impacted because of that also. So that also they track. So that also comes in. Uh, the compliance scenarios also, right? Generally, am I SOC 2 compliant? Is there a GDPR violation that is happening? Or are all my apps GDPR compliant? So that persona also uses it. But yeah, they don't have to be technical at all, right? The integration is pre-built in the application. Uh, Again, for IT operations, it's just a question of ticks. For the procurement, they may have to look through two screens, or it could just be a chatbot interface where they talk about it and they get the information. For security, it might be slightly more involved because more detailed data they may have to look at, but they don't have to have the technical knowledge per se for that.
One other question. So, for large organizations, $18 million was what we saw on an average for the management of these applications as applications. So it's quite significant. And so, what are the expected actions that are expected from these organizations? Because there may be a reason that we're using 473 SaaS-based applications within this organization. Is it expected that we stop usage of these applications, or we find alternatives, or is it just a reporting tool that this platform will act as for leaders to take informed decisions on how to use SaaS?
Yeah. See, I think the first thing about any problem is to be aware of the problem, right? So that 473 number, uh, what is just telling him that so many apps are getting used. So he may be aware of only 200. They're telling him that there's another 270 which you are not aware of. If you look at a lot of the testimonials given by customers, it will be on those lines, right? I was aware of 1/3 or a half of what was being used, right? So that is one part of it. Beyond that, we could give recommendations. A lot of them give recommendations also. So if you look at this particular example, right, what this says is that it says of this customer service category, you're using 5 different apps, right? Do you really need all those? So can you actually consolidate? So that is another thing. And also from a risk perspective, right? Of these five, two might be a high risk application. So then it might say that, hey, these are high risk applications. Why are you guys even using it, right? So that is the thing. But being aware itself is a significant value add for the organizations. But this can go significantly beyond that as well.
One last question. So, using these tools, do you feel there is a scope for innovation? Like let's say this example where one department using 5 different SaaS applications to do similar things. Is there a possibility in the future to innovate and create better solutions or better applications which can solve multiple problems? And instead of using multiple applications, we use a single product which was developed by the
Yeah, no, I
organization.
think that is where I was talking about the possibility of this platform providing information to the entire industry, right? So if you look at it, some of the data being tracked is fairly granular. So if you look at it, there is a functionality thing also I can track with, right? So if based on this, I can identify which functionalities are getting used, which functionalities are not getting used, and then which is a combination. In fact, we had also earlier with a client, we had spoken about a combination of apps, right? Maybe this combination is the best for an organization, right? So that there are minimal overlaps of capabilities and things like that. Yes, definitely that is a possibility, but still we are not there yet, right?
Yeah, thank you. This was very informative.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll get.
Thank you very much for that nice talk. My question is, can you give, you talked about pre-integration, the number of like 300, 400 odd apps and all of these. So the integrations come as table stakes from these SMP providers, and are the number of integrations an indicator of maturity or a better SMP? That is one question. And can you put some light onto the pricing model, like what is table stake pricing, what is value added pricing in the SMP space? And I have one more question. Any AI are you really seeing, or it is just data collection, data lake kind of a thing? Are you really seeing AI being applied in this space?
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was your first question again? I'm sorry, I was.
Pricing. So, what is table stakes? What is premium? And is the number of pre-integrated things an
Yes.
indicator of the maturity of the product?
Yeah. I'll talk about the pre-integrated one first. See, people, yeah, again, if you look at their sites, all of them talk about the number of integrations that they have done, right?
Okay.
Uh, because they look at it as a differentiator. Somebody talks about, I think Zluri talks about 800, Zuli or Zelo, one of the talks about 800, somebody talks about 300 and things like that. So they see that as a differentiator. So it can be an indicator of two things. One is either the maturity of the platform, or in fact, it could be of three things, right? Maturity of platform, or it could be of the sophistication of the platform, so that they're able to actually do all these things faster, right? Third thing is it could also indicate the geographical spread, saying that they are spread across multiple geographies. Each geography has very specific apps that are needed. Like a lot of significantly globally significant apps are there, but there are a lot of
Regional taste.
regional. So it could be that also, right? But generally, if I look at Zluri is actually the top in those number of integrations, and they are at the top of the Gartner's chain.
Right.
Not just because of that, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing. See, pricing, what I'm seeing is it is still evolving. Each of them have a different model. One model I've seen is a very basic, per employee
Mm-hmm.
pricing, saying, organization has 500 employees. I'll do, per month, I'll charge some amount, right?
Right.
That is again, basic thing. Most of them have that model also. There are other SaaS models also. In fact, one of the vendors actually sees AI-based capabilities as a value add,
Okay.
and then they charge separately for that, right?
Okay.
And then even some other capabilities they treat as a value add, and then they charge for that. In fact, one of the organization is even offering services on top of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Saying that I will help you negotiate a better contract, right?
Ah.
So there also they're doing some pricing. So it's still evolving, but it is typical SaaS pricing, right?
Mm.
Per employee pricing, and of course, if you're in an enterprise, it will probably a different thing. But employee based pricing plus value add, value add, value add. That is
Got
the
it.
thing. See, AI use cases, definitely there are possibilities. So if you look at this benchmarking example, right?
Uh-huh.
We say similar organizations, right? How do I define similar, right? That has to come from a model which says, okay, these are clusters of organizations. So that is one part. Typically, when we talk about risk scores and all those things, right? There also you'll have to come up with a model which is saying these are the risky things, and based on that, I will actually factor in and provide the thing. That could also be use cases where there are projections, right? For example, we talked about the procurement persona. If there is going to be so budgeting use case, right? I know I've spent so much this year. Tell me how much can I expect next year, like based on my usage, or it could be based on the number of employee projections and things like that. So I could do that projection and give you saying this is what it is. And on a monthly basis also, I can say, hey, you are not on the right track, right? You're exceeding, or you're below that and things like that. Again, there significant AI potential is there.
Thank you.